A massive data breach has occurred, with at least 27 states handing over highly sensitive information about food stamp recipients to the USDA. This unprecedented move has sparked controversy and raised serious concerns about privacy and the potential misuse of personal data. Most Democratic-led states have stood firm against the Trump administration's demand for this data, refusing to comply with what they see as an unlawful and invasive request. However, states with Republican governors have largely caved in, sharing the personal details of millions of individuals receiving federal food assistance. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, supports nearly 42 million Americans each month. The USDA justifies this data grab as a necessary step to identify and eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse within the program. But Democratic state officials argue that this is just the latest in a pattern of the Trump administration aggregating personal data for purposes beyond the stated goal, including immigration enforcement. A legal victory for the states came on Wednesday when a U.S. district judge issued a preliminary order blocking the Trump administration from punishing non-compliant states. This means that, for now, the administration cannot legally withhold billions of dollars in SNAP administrative funds from the 21 states and the District of Columbia involved in the lawsuit. The judge's order states that the states are likely to succeed in their claim that the USDA's actions are contrary to law and that the SNAP Act prohibits the disclosure of the demanded information. This ruling reinforces a temporary restraining order issued last month, sending a clear message that the rule of law is on the side of those protecting the privacy of SNAP recipients. California Attorney General Rob Bonta summed up the situation, stating, "The president is trying to hijack a nutrition program to fuel his mass surveillance agenda." He emphasized that the Trump administration's strong-arm tactics will not succeed, as the states stand united in their belief that the law is on their side. The controversy surrounding SNAP data comes at a time when the program faces its deepest cuts in history, along with changes in eligibility requirements and increased costs for states, as outlined in the tax and spending bill signed by Trump in July. An unprecedented data demand. In May, the USDA notified states that they would be required to turn over personal data of SNAP recipients dating back to 2020, a first for the program. The agency cited an executive order signed by President Trump in March, which mandates unfettered access to data from state-run programs receiving federal funds to combat waste, fraud, and abuse. Philip Rocco, a political scientist, described the Trump administration's actions as a stark departure from professional norms, contrasting it with the long-standing pattern of respectful federal-state relationships. Historically, the federal government audited state data without centralizing personal information, and federal law restricts the use of SNAP recipient data to SNAP administration purposes with narrow exceptions. Questions remain about the Trump administration's plans and whether SNAP data will be used to track immigrants and increase deportations. While undocumented immigrants are ineligible for SNAP, parents of U.S. citizens can sign up for benefits for their children regardless of their own status. A Pennsylvania official wrote that their state agency tried to negotiate a data-sharing agreement with the USDA, but was met with silence on key questions about data usage, sharing with other federal agencies, and security protocols. The USDA threatened non-compliant states with the loss of federal funds, a move described by Rocco as out of line with professional norms. Data sharing and the impact. Most Republican-led states, along with North Carolina, have completed the data transfer, sharing sensitive information on millions of SNAP recipients. 8 states provided NPR with details of the data fields shared, which varied by state. Vermont, for example, sent names, social security numbers, birth dates, and home addresses dating back to January 2020, while other states included additional details like income, household size, and utility costs. Nebraska submitted data for over 437,500 people, including 12.5 million data points, while Ohio and Texas shared data for approximately 3.1 million and 3.7 million individuals, respectively. As of August 12, 27 states had complied with the data transfer, representing over 15.7 million SNAP enrollees, nearly 38% of the program's total enrollment. USDA's stated use of state data. In a public notice, the USDA claimed broad authority to share SNAP data, including disclosure to other agencies when a record indicates a potential violation of law. However, the federal judge in the lawsuit wrote that such uses are well beyond what is permitted under federal law. What is known is that the USDA is running SNAP recipient data through the Department of Homeland Security's SAVE system, originally developed to check the immigration status of foreign-born individuals. The Trump administration recently expanded SAVE to verify the citizenship of U.S.-born citizens and check for deceased individuals listed in Social Security records. The USDA has not disclosed its findings from SAVE, but a preliminary review of state data revealed instances of multiple payments to households, potential cases of deceased individuals enrolled in SNAP, individuals disqualified from SNAP still receiving benefits, and dummy Social Security numbers. Officials from California and Illinois responded that these findings lacked key details and context, and that there could be legitimate explanations for many of the alleged issues. They also pointed to the National Accuracy Clearinghouse, a tool being implemented to prevent people from receiving SNAP benefits in multiple states. Concerns of wrongful fraud allegations. A Vermont resident relying on SNAP and receiving disability benefits shared her concerns with NPR. She expressed disappointment in her governor's decision to turn over her data, stating that she doesn't trust the federal government with her personal information and fears it may not be secure. Speaking anonymously due to fears of government retaliation, she said she already lives in constant fear of making a minor mistake with her benefits and facing severe consequences. Now, with the new data transfer, she worries that the USDA could use this information to wrongfully accuse her and others of fraud. "I've never not been living in fear of the system supporting me," she said. "It's not about preventing waste, because we're pennies to the dollar." This story highlights the very real concerns of SNAP recipients who feel vulnerable and exposed by the actions of their state governments and the federal administration. What are your thoughts on this issue? Do you think the USDA's data collection is justified, or is it a step too far in the name of preventing waste and fraud? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below.